So we see all these memes about, oh wow, he is literally me. But what's it all about? I mean, the term literally me implies some sort of kingship or parasocial relationship with the characters that they're talking about. We look at some films that the memes are about and look at some common factors and let's try to decipher it that way. These characters are usually outcast either through choice or not. Usually male, but sometimes not. Usually they have a special skill or a special job that makes them more valuable to their peers, which is implied that if they didn't have that skill, that they wouldn't be as valued by other people. Most of the time they're introverted, but sometimes not, and a lot of them tap into the existential dread that we all have. Now let's look at Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, the embodiment of r/nice guys.
You're a fucking ugly bitch. I want to stab you to death, then play around with your blood.
He's rude, arrogant and narcissistic, which are all bad traits, but people seem to like him. Why is that? Throughout the film we hear his internal monologues and how he's sort of disillusioned with society, and he talks about the facade he puts on.
There is an idea of a Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me.
And that is probably more relatable than, well. And while the majority of us can't relate to committing first-degree murder, we can probably relate to being at our limits. Now let's look at the driver from Drive. Now he possesses mainly positive characteristics, like he doesn't bring a gun to a job, he has a soft spot for children, he's a good Samaritan and willing to help people out when he doesn't really have a reason to do so. And despite being a criminal, those aspects of his character make him more virtuous, at least in contrast to other criminals in the film. He doesn't have many social bonds, but the bonds he does have are genuine. And we have the driver and we have Bateman, which, yeah, in contrast, there are quite a few differences between them, which I think really highlights the diversity of literally me characters. So what can we glean from this? I think you could chalk that more down to the range of human emotions with the audience themselves, like the willingness to empathise with a range of different characters that may have some similarities and quite a few differences. Let's look at Officer K from Blade Runner 2049. In the film we can imply that he has intimacy issues, mainly with him not being a real boy and all that.
What's it like to hold the hand of someone you love? Do you long for having your heart interlinked? Do you dream about being interlinked?
And him having sort of an artificial holographic girlfriend. Now while he's artificial himself, he's not exactly a copy and paste. There's one of him, even though he was produced like many others. But for Joy, she's literally a mass-produced product. So the affection that Joy shows Kay is probably part of her programming. I mean, would Kay have bought Joy if she wouldn't have shown him affection? Officer K can't interact in regular society, mainly because they don't want him, because he's a replicant, and there's a lot of animosity towards replicants.
Fuck off, good job.
And for his job, he's scrutinised very heavily. I mean, it's not stated, but it's implied that if he stopped working there, he wouldn't be around for very long. So the whole thing with Joy is more of a quick fix for intimacy. And the scene at the end where he sees the big holographic Joy and just saying that he's a good Joe after his Joy called him Joe. Like, talk about kicking a man when he's down. You can just see the heartbreak on his face. I mean, Ryan Gosling's a very good actor. Just with that almost stoic expression, he can convey so much emotion. And that's something we all experience as we go into adulthood and our social circles shrink and we meet less and less people and form fewer social bonds. That's just part of growing up. But the whole memes of the literally me, considering Generation Z is going into adulthood and memes are pretty well the domain of Generation Z. We're seeing memes about what Generation Z are currently going through. Talking about literally me characters, Tyler Durden in Fight Club is literally the narrator. Like, he is basically an idealised version of the narrator.
I look like you want to look, I fuck like you want to fuck, I am smart, capable, and most importantly, I'm free in all the ways that you are not.
Okay, maybe there are some aspects that the audience can relate to these characters, but they also possess characteristics that we find desirable, like having strong social bonds despite there being few of them, or maybe being skilled in a particular field and being valued by our peers. But I think there also has to be an aspect of there being a blank canvas to these characters. Like, Bateman himself is a facade, so his real self, like, we see snippets of, but there's not enough there to be that tangible. Or the driver from Drive, he doesn't have a name, and we don't see a lot about his backstory or his life, so that again makes him more of an insert character. Officer K, again, we don't know too much about him outside of what we see in the film. Or the narrator from Fight Club, who's just another worker bee, essentially, and something that a lot of us can really relate to. And these characters have existed for ages. Like, you look at Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, and I'm sure there are older examples as well. It's just that now a name has been put to it. Thank you very much for watching, subscribe if you like, and I'll see you later.